I just wanted to share a brief story about how I learned about more holistic birth and natural birth. And when I say the word holistic, it really involves spiritual, mental, emotional, physical aspects. You want all those components into where, like, talking about a whole picture. I grew up in a really conservative Christian religion that had us abstain from sexuality before marriage and has a system to keep most of their members accountable to do this. And so it's like a real legitimate thing. Like most people do abstain from sexual relations before they get married. And so just kind of a curious way to grow up, and also did not really encourage eroticism or a lot of sexual experimentation at all, and actually kind of portrayed that as being bad, which isn't really helpful. I wouldn't say it's a positive thing in my adulthood, and really had huge learning curves had to be processed and worked through and learned in my adulthood. So, and it's so important to hold both the pros and cons of exploring sexuality before marriage and or after marriage. So I, within this conservative Christian religion, I was invited to a church class taught by a midwife in training, and she introduced this. I think this was really rare, and this was actually really helpful, and I'm so glad I was there. It just felt really aligned that I was invited to this class. She introduced the movie The Business of Being Born by Ricki. She was showing, the birthing process through the documentary video, and then she also described how powerful it was entering the birthing room or a woman's home that's birthing, and how that sexual relationship could be so impactful if that sexual relationship is healthy and it's developed and it's mature and it's rich and it's has less shame in it and less fear and guilt involved within the sexual relationship. And so even men are naked with their wives because this is like the end of their fulfillment of their sexual relationship. So it's like a very sensual space, a very sacred space, and sexual. All those words go together, which was so far from what I had seen, heard, researched, and learned in my upbringing or perceived. And this concept was like, yeah, that sounds actually right. And I grasped onto it and I thought it was really beautiful. And even to the extreme to say the midwife was in the room as the husband and wife were naked, because their sexuality was so rich in the moment of the birthing process. And I'm like, is that a little bit violating their privacy? But when you have maturity behind it and evolution behind your sexual maturity and practice, you kind of tune out who's there, and you actually need a midwife's help. Not everybody does. There are people that call it free birth and birth without a midwife's help or a doctor's help, and I would prefer to have somebody medically inclined and trained and seasoned to help me through birth. That's just a personal preference. So as I thought about this feeling of the fulfillment of sexual energy at the time of giving birth, that's when this full circle comes to pass. So many women report to almost have an orgasmic experience at the time of giving birth, that sexual relations can get a fully the cycle can end through orgasm, but think about the patience and time and love and care and fuel and feeding and collaboration that a 9-month process of growing a child takes. And so to be patient and resilient and kind and loving and attentive for 9 months, and then you can receive fulfillment into that end of the process. Oh my gosh, nothing else feels so beautiful and fulfilling. And I think that's really important to know. That was a dream of mine. And it was, that seed was planted by this class that I attended and by the honesty and vulnerability of the midwife that was going counterculture when she was teaching this class, which I'm like really grateful for, because she did plant the seed for me. And it was a dream that I had of mine. And unfortunately, in my first birth, the dream did not come true because I didn't have the words to explain and bring my spouse into that circle of union. And my second birth, much more aligned in that way. Third birth, we made it. And that's such a gift. It's kind of a sacred space that I don't share like a lot of the story behind, because it's just rich and it's ours. And it's, but like I finally felt that fulfillment in my last birth, and it took a long time. It took a lot of time breaking through sexual, or like, let me say purity culture conditioning, understanding the evolution, eroticism, beauty, creativity, collaboration of sexuality. That just, yeah, it honestly took a lot of time to break through the conditioning that I had received as a young girl and as a teenager growing up. But I really wanted to speak of that seed and something that was rich and had to kind of sit with me for years before it came to pass.